Good morning and welcome everyone to today's webinar presentation, exploring the benefits of embedding dynamic scripting languages in your products. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. We hope you find the presentation informative. I'm Kendra and I'm the Marketing Communications Manager here at ActiveState, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. Before we get started, I'm going to introduce our speakers. Bart Copeland brings more than 20 years of leadership, management, finance, and business experience to his position as CEO and President of ActiveState. He is passionate about creating and building the infrastructure and environment at ActiveState that allows our bright people to have a ton of fun while constantly creating and innovating to solve complex problems, produce cool and useful applications that provide real benefits to our customers. Jeff Hobbs is our Director of Engineering, overseeing the development of all ActiveState products, from language distributions to development tools and web-based solutions. He's responsible for leading and fostering our talented development team, but he's also a coder at heart, and dynamic languages are his passion. He's been a member of the Tickle core team for more than a decade and is the primary author of many popular Tickle modules. Today's agenda, we're going to go through why you should use dynamic languages, what are OEM solutions, why we should be using OEM solutions, OEM for development, OEM for management, a licensing overview, differentiating your products, and a little bit about ActiveState. Now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Jeff Hobbs.
Thanks, Kendra. So, let's review first why you would want to be using dynamic languages. There are three main points here. First off, it saves development time. There have been many studies as well as anecdotal reports about how much quicker you can get something up and running in a dynamic language versus any of the systems languages, whether that's C or even a little higher level in Java and C#. By saving development time, you essentially get to market faster, and of course that can be very important in today's tech world. Overall, you can also improve your user experience through enabling the scripting options for your users and customers. So sometimes this is important internally for your own needs, and sometimes it's a great advantage to provide to the customers to allow them to tweak and modify using the open source standard dynamic languages that they're used to in other applications. So what are OEM solutions? Well, basically they're leveraging other technologies inside your products. This is done in all sorts of industries as well as the high-tech industry. Here's an example where it's the automotive industry, where they're OEMing all sorts of parts in order to give you a better car or to have the car that they need to update on a yearly basis. You don't see Ford or Chevy trying to engineer all their own audio products, for example. They go to well-known manufacturers such as Kenwood or Bose and leverage their technology into what the car company is good at, and that's making cars. So overall, the user experience of these bundled items together is the best they can offer at a good price point. So for our OEM solutions, that often means bundling an ActiveState language distribution, such as ActivePerl or ActivePython, in your own products. This often does come down to buying versus building your own components. But again, are you better at building the dynamic languages, or is your expertise in your own networking or medical or other field? And are you building the car? Let us build the radios for you. So again, why are you using these OEM solutions? They're the same reasons you use dynamic languages. First off, it allows you to save development time. Through saving development time, you're definitely getting to market faster. And overall, you're improving your user experience because you get to spend all the extra time making the perfect application in your domain space and leaving the worries about dynamic languages to ActiveState. So let's talk about how you save development time. At the top, we see a very typical development schedule that precedes your release to market. There's the brainstorming, design, development, QA, and deployment. Obviously, there might be a little bit of iterative work between development and QA in there. If you're using dynamic languages in your solutions, using ActiveState language distributions and OEMing them will reduce the design, development, and QA time, getting you quicker to deployment and release to market. So here's an example of a customer, an actual customer of ours, that is in the global content management space. They use their software to manage the content on a global scale for large companies that may have very divisions spread across multiple continents, and they do this in multiple languages, multiple natural languages, so English, French, German, and the language that they have built into their product is Perl, and they're using ActivePerl. They chose to use the ActiveState languages because they were precompiled and tested for them. There was nothing that they had to do about building it and making sure that it had the right set of modules that they need and across the platforms that they needed. They're running on Windows and Linux, so cross-platform standardization was really helpful for them. They can come to us, get the exact same version of the Perl core and set of modules on Linux as they do on Windows. These extra modules are also very important because they're using various standards. They're using data XML as their data format and other standards for which we provide the Perl modules for them to interface with, and they know that everything's ready out of the box for them to ship in their own products. So with that, I'll pass it on to Bart.
Thanks, Jeff. So Jeff is focused on OEMing from a development perspective. I would like to focus on OEM from a management perspective, whereas the development manager or the developers have some succinct different needs than maybe management has. And I want to share with you some of the things that management thinks about. First of all, under OEM for management, hassle-free redistribution rights. The beauty of working with OEM and working with somebody like ActiveState on OEMing your dynamic language distribution is you don't have to worry about the thousands of modules that make up that distribution and making sure that you have the proper redistribution rights for all the modules. The second thing that we tend to see our management is concerned about is indemnification related to the open source software. Often when a product is being built for large enterprises, the large enterprise wants to make sure that all components of the software are properly indemnified, and that even includes the OEM source. So this is another aspect of why OEMing makes sense as opposed to using pure open source. And then finally, elimination of legal risk. So this is related to the indemnification, but from a management perspective, they don't want to have to worry about legal risk. Whether it's with the modules or whether it's indemnification, all of this needs to be taken care of, and it is under an OEM relationship. So in summary, hassle-free redistribution rights, indemnification, and elimination of legal risk. So moving on, let's drill down a little bit more about this mitigation aspects around proper licensing and eliminating the legal risk. So what we do is it's turnkey licensing. So typically when you think of a distribution, whether it's a Perl distribution or a Python distribution or a Tickle distribution, as I mentioned earlier, these are comprised of literally thousands of different modules. Each of these different modules is often governed by a separate license agreement. So when you deal with OEM, the OEM partner is taking care of all of those separate licensing agreements. As a result, you only have to enter into one license agreement with the OEM partner as opposed to worry about all the license agreements from the various third parties. Obviously, the benefits of this is that it saves you a ton of time in legal and compliance review, as well as it reduces complexities for you and reduces your risks. When I say reduces your risk, because this may not be your day job or what you typically do from a management perspective, whereas an OEM partner such as ActiveState, this is what we do each and every day. The other thing about mitigating risk, and I did touch on this earlier, which is really important, is your customers may demand commercially supported, fully indemnified solutions or OEM solutions. And so by dealing with someone like ActiveState, you get both. You know you have a distribution that's commercially supported, so in case there's any security glitches or security bugs or bugs that arise, you know they can be dealt with right away. And secondly, it comes fully indemnified if you want that option. Now, one thing I want to clarify, again, when we're talking about OEM for management, is that in the case of ActiveState, we have a separate license agreement that is different than our free distribution. So if you are familiar with ActivePerl or ActiveTickle or ActivePython and getting it free off of our website, you're free to use that internally within your own organization, or it's free to use for non-commercial use. However, if you want to redistribute, then you need to come to ActiveState for a different OEM license. So moving to the next slide, I want to give you an example of a company that we've worked with a number of years that combines both the OEMing from a development perspective and OEMing from a management perspective. So this is Computer Associates, or CA, and it's their SiteMinder product. It's a web access manager. It's an enterprise scale internet access control system. And they approached us because they needed to be able to resolve problems faster. So that's why they went with ActivePerl distribution. They wanted to reduce their costs on their entire product matrix. As Jeff pointed out earlier, the costs from development to deployment. And they wanted, it was really important to them, they wanted to reduce their test time in their process. And we help them with that because all our distributions are quality assured and tested and ready to go on a regular basis as they're updated. In addition to the development benefits, they also wanted management benefits, and they needed to know they had a distribution that had been reviewed properly and they were mitigated from any legal risks associated with open source. And that was very important to them, as well as the indemnification. So, and they needed this because they needed to gain the trust of large enterprise customers who were working with their SiteMinder Web Access Manager product. So to summarize, why differentiate your product with OEM? Well, first and foremost, and specifically when I say why differentiate, I'm talking about differentiating with dynamic languages. It allows you to provide advanced scripting options for your products. Having advanced scripting options allows you to do a lot more to your product than you may not be able to do today. What we tend to do is by differentiating, you're bundling the scripting options for a seamless installation experience. So, and what I mean by that is consider the converse. The converse is if you're concerned about legal risk, what you will do is you will point people to self-download. So it's not a one-click experience. Or if you don't want to pay for an OEM from ActiveState, you can point to them to get to our free distributions, and that's totally fine. But a lot of people choose not to do that because it's not a seamless installation experience. More and more users, especially in the large businesses, are wanting that one-click solution. And by bundling your scripting options, scripting solutions or options into the product as an OEM, it gets you that result. The next key thing for differentiating is commercially backed for confidence. By having this, you can say to your customers your entire product suite or your entire solution is commercially backed, including the OEM components. And then finally, your customers want to know, they're going to want to know from you that you provide full indemnification of the product, including the open source components. And by dealing with an OEM group such as ActiveState, you get that indemnification from us as well. So by way of an example, here an example of just some customers that have OEM'd from ActiveState. You can see from this slide that typically we tend to OEM, not surprisingly, to other software companies, but we also do a lot of OEMing in the aerospace and defense sector. That's a quite common area where they need to have commercial support, they need indemnification, need protection around open source software. Now, just as we draw our webinar to a conclusion, I want to tell you a little bit about ActiveState. We've been around since 1997, specializing in dynamic languages. We touch over 2 million developers worldwide, and we estimate about 97% of the Fortune 1000 rely on ActiveState Solutions to drive their back-end, front-end products when it comes to scripting languages. We have a complete suite of solutions around develop, management, and distribution of solutions related to dynamic languages. Our core languages that we specialize in are Python, Perl, and Tickle, followed by PHP, Ruby, and JavaScript. And this slide gives you a better idea of what we do in the area of develop, manage, and distribute. So on the development side, you can see we have our free distributions, ActivePerl, ActivePython, and ActiveTickle, followed by our IDE, Komodo, and then our dev kits, the Perl dev kit and the Tickle dev kit. Moving up the stack, we have manage. This is where enterprises want a complete one-stop solution around dealing with the management of dynamic languages. We provide commercial support, we provide training, we provide consulting, we provide different levels of enterprise support, whether it's business edition or enterprise edition, and you can go to our website to get a full overview of what you get in those different versions. And then moving up to the point of this webinar today, distribute. You can also OEM our distributions from ActiveState, specifically ActivePerl, ActivePython, and ActiveTickle, and the OEMing possibly can include indemnification if that's what you're looking for. So I'll hand over this last slide to Jeff, where he will wrap up.
And just getting back to the previous points on development and how we have things covered. This slide basically shows the depth and breadth across which we have the languages built, ready to use, and essentially available as OEM solutions. Across Tickle, Perl, and Python, several major releases that are current, 17,000 packages or modules available. These are all binary, ready to use on the platform that you need them for. And then 10, again, across the languages, 10 major language releases in total, all across 16 different architectures. That covers 6 operating systems, but then you have 32 versus 64-bit and other variations. Shows a lot of architectures and the breadth at which we are able to deliver the dynamic languages.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bart and Jeff. That's all the time we have today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. And we do have a white paper available to you by download, a license to code indemnifying your business against open source licensing liabilities. And of course, if you have any questions or you want some more information on your OEM options, please contact us at businesssolutions@activestate.com, and there's a phone number there on the screen. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.